This is the Paycheck to Daycheck Reselling Podcast.
I'm Liz.
And I'm Ashley.
Together, we have been making money online collectively for over 10 years.
Our mission is to help you start, learn, and grow a reselling business and to inspire you to turn your paycheck into a daycheck.
The world is changing, and we want to help you change with it. Welcome back to the Paycheck to Daycheck Reselling Podcast. Today's episode, we are going to be talking about one of the most important aspects of reselling, which is bookkeeping. And let's be honest, it can be very terrifying and intimidating, especially if you don't have the experience to be tracking and analyzing your numbers. So our guests today are Paul and Faith of My Reseller Genie. So welcome.
Thank you.
They are going to today share My Reseller Genie and how it can help resellers just like you who are listening. So do you guys mind telling us a little bit about My Reseller Genie?
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Faith, and I've been a reseller. I just celebrated my 5-year reselling anniversary. And this is, well, I'll let you introduce yourself.
I'm Paul. I'm her husband. I have a background in accounting.
Yeah. So, very succinctly put, we started right around COVID. We started My Reseller Genie right around COVID, after Paul had made me like a very basic spreadsheet to help me track all my numbers for reselling, because my first tax season was a nightmare because I did not know what I should be tracking. I wasn't tracking anything. And so he kind of came to my rescue, made me something really simple. And then COVID hit and we were like, hey, we're hearing from all these resellers, they need something similar. So let's go ahead and help them too. So, I can expound if you want, but that's the short of it.
Yeah. So can you explain, is it a software Chrome extension? How would it work for resellers?
Yeah. So it's a web app. So you would access it through your browser, which is great because any internet connected device, you can connect to My Reseller Genie. For some parts of the app, we'd say you should probably do it on like a computer or a tablet, something that's got a bigger screen. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you could use your phone even. I think that covers it. So it's not an extension, but you don't need to download it on your computer.
As a reseller, I actually use My Reseller Genie. Casey and I switched over to that, and it has definitely solved a lot of the problems that we had with tracking our sales, our inventory, our expenses. So when you have a new reseller that comes to you, or even somebody who's, been reselling for a while and just knows that they're going to need to use something for tax time, what are some of the biggest problems that you see with resellers and their bookkeeping?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest problems is just people not doing anything. Mm-hmm. And it's funny with reselling, I think a lot of people get into it as a hobby, like it's something fun that you start doing. You sell a couple of things, you go sourcing a couple times, and then it just like kind of keeps snowballing. And then you realize, oh shoot, I made $20,000 this year, and I didn't pay attention to like tracking my revenue or my expenses,
keeping my receipts.
Yeah, so it's difficult because like I think it turns from a hobby into a business very quickly. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'd say not tracking things from the beginning.
Yeah, well, and then if I could just piggyback off of that, I would say just like it's hard to know what we need to track, right? Like if you haven't done this before, like it's scary because you're like, oh my goodness, like I'm hearing about all of these like different things from this website or this person or this influencer or whatever. But it's like, how do I like put it all into one, and figure out everything that I'm supposed to be tracking? And that can be really, really overwhelming. I know that I experienced that for sure. So that's one of the things that we pride ourselves in My Reseller Genie, is that like we've kind of created pretty much everything, that a reseller needs to be tracking for their business into one software, which is really, really helpful because it streamlines it for people.
Yeah, I think it's really important when resellers start. A lot of people, I'm not a numbers person. I was never good at math. Like accounting makes my head spin. I didn't want to keep track of this stuff either. But I think if I had started at the beginning, like when it was a hobby at first, it would have made it so much easier to keep track of now that it is a business, instead of like backtracking and trying to play catch up, if you just do it the right way from the beginning, I think that's really important for people to know, especially if they're listening and maybe thinking about starting to get into reselling or just starting. You mentioned, Faith, about the spreadsheet that Paul made you when you first started to kind of get your accounting in order and tracking and everything. Is that what prompted the creation of My Reseller Genie as a whole, or was there something else that sort of prompted it?
Yeah, I mean, great question. Short answer is yes, that is what prompted it. But I'll just give you like a little bit more background. So I think I mentioned in the beginning, my first tax season as a reseller came. I didn't know what I was doing. It was like 3 months of pulling out my hair around tax season and headaches. And I think I even cried a few times. Like, it was just horrible. And I'm married to an accountant. And so he didn't realize, I don't think he realized like at the time how much I was struggling. And then I just was eventually like, babe, like this, I don't know what I'm doing. And, he came back, from his 9-to-5 accounting job at the time. And he was like, all right, like, I'm going to put something together for you. So, put together a really basic Excel spreadsheet. I will just tell you guys, it took me a while to get caught up because I had to go through, and I had to put in all my cost of goods and all that. And so I actually, like you said, like it's best to start tracking it from the very beginning of your business. If you haven't, it's okay. Like, it is possible to catch up because I did it. We've, a lot of us are having to do that this year. But yeah, so very basic Excel spreadsheet. And I think it was about 2 years later, COVID hit. He fortunately was able to keep his job in accounting, but he lost some hours at the time. So he was looking for some more work. And that was a nightmare, like with COVID, like looking for work and everything. It was really, really rough. And, I was still reselling at the time, of course. And I was standing in the kitchen and I looked at him and I was like, Paul, like I'm in all these Facebook groups, like for Poshmark or eBay or, and I'm on Instagram and I'm hearing the same thing from people. And that is that resellers are terrified of accounting. They don't know what they're doing. And there's just like the stigma around all of this. And so I was like, I really think that there's a need for what you made me. Like we need to kind of make it better. We need to, what would you say?
More user friendly.
Yeah, more user friendly. Add some more features to it. But like, I think that there's a need for this in the community. And it was like this light bulb. And I wasn't expecting him to say yes. Like, he's a very methodical person. We're very, very different. It works well, but we're very different. And, like, he really takes his time thinking about stuff and, analyzing everything. I didn't think he was going to say yes, but he actually was like, oh, I think this could be really good. So he spent probably 3 months of coding a gorgeous Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. It is the prettiest spreadsheet I've ever seen in my life. Most user-friendly spreadsheet I've ever seen in my life. It was so easy to use. I was like, you hardly even needed to know anything about Excel in order to use it. We launched that in July 2020. Yeah, 2020. And we sold over 500 copies of that, got 5-star ratings from it, really good feedback. And that was kind of the basis for what, gave us what we needed to arrive at the conclusion, basically like, okay, in order to serve more people, we need to create a web app because people don't like Excel. Even though this is user-friendly, people don't like Excel. They don't like spreadsheets. So let's make a web application, make this even easier to use. And so we spent all of last year in development for the web app. And November of last year was when we launched the web app. So we are a year, right? Yeah. A year that we've had the web application.
Congratulations on a year. That's amazing.
Thank you.
I watched some of the videos. So I am admittedly not a My Reseller Genie user yet, but I wanted to learn more about the product and preparation for this. You mentioned in some of the videos and on your website about how you offer both cash and accrual accounting on the platform. I have no idea what the difference is, and I'm sure there's other people that have no idea what the difference is. Can you explain what that difference is?
Great question.
Yeah, definitely. So I should narrow it down a little bit to cash and accrual inventory method. So like cash and accrual has broader implications, which we don't totally address. So like, I don't think there's a reselling business out there that's full accrual. But accrual basically means that you match expenses to revenue by time period. So there's a lot of implications there, which I don't want to go into because I think it'll confuse the issue. But for inventory specifically, cash versus accrual, in cash method, when you buy inventory, that's when you record it as an expense. Whereas with accrual method, when you sell inventory, that's when you record it as an expense. With cash method, you're not tracking your inventory, but with accrual method, you are.
Sorry, it's basically like if you're taking the inventory off like the front end or the back end. Is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So like cash method is easier to implement, because like honestly, especially if you're catching up, like you can just, look at, your credit card statement and see like, oh, I bought inventory on this day. So that's, $50 of expense. Whereas with, accrual method, you're tracking the purchase price of inventory like over time. And so it's a little bit harder to go back and say like, all right, this inventory costs this inventory costs that, this inventory costs that. That being said, accrual method does give you better insight into your business because it lines up the costs of your items with your revenue for those items.
Yeah. So you're actually able to see, okay, like how much profit did I actually make on this? Is this worth it to continue doing this? And I could go on and on about that. So personally, I use the accrual inventory method. And yes, it's more work, especially in the beginning if you're getting caught up. But we are not here to tell you which method to use. Like we always say, speak to your accountant. But I love the accrual method because it gives you such amazing analytics into your business, and you can make better business decisions and grow your business that way. So, but anyway, but My Reseller Genie allows you to use either the cash inventory or the accrual inventory method. So that's really, really nice. So we can help both of those people.
Perfect. Thank you so much for going into so much detail about that. That's so helpful.
Good. Sometimes I go into too much detail and Faith
never. You love specifics.
I wanted to go back to how you were talking about the spreadsheet in the beginning. So I am guilty. When Casey and I first started, it literally was a hobby for me on the side. And Casey's like, let's see if you can make money, because he had a full-time job and we RV'd full-time and we just wanted to find something for me to do on the side. And it came time to, we've always had a W-2. We've always had, an employer give us the W-2 and say, all right, do your taxes. And we could do our own. It was simple. And then once we got into reselling, I'm like, I have no idea what I'm supposed to be tracking. Like, what am I supposed to be doing? It was so intimidating. We do have a CPA, so that's been very helpful for us because we do have an LLC. So I know there's people who, they don't have the LLC. It's just they're an individual. And I don't know if a lot of people are aware that are listening that this year they changed it to where you're going to get a 1099K if you do $600 or more in sales. You're going to have to account for that on your taxes, whether you're an individual or a business. So we did do the spreadsheet. And one thing that was my biggest fear with the spreadsheet was, what if that spreadsheet disappeared? What if my computer crashed? What if, what am I going to do all that work? Because it is a lot of work to go in and put in your inventory and track everything. So I think that is probably the best thing about My Reseller Genie is that it is a web app and you don't have to have that fear of all of a sudden the spreadsheet disappearing. Like it's all on there. And I like the drag and drop.
Coffee on my laptop.
Okay.
My spreadsheet's gone.
Yeah, so I think that is like a huge benefit for it. I know if you're listening, you're probably thinking, well, how do I even import anything into My Reseller Genie? So can you kind of explain how, if somebody sold on eBay, how they would go about getting their sales on there if they had never been tracking anything from the beginning?
Yeah, so we've got a lot of ways to import data from eBay. We actually just recently added a direct import functionality. So like when you're getting started up, it's just a couple clicks. Like you click a button, it takes you to eBay to log in, allow Genie to access your account, and you come back and you're like, I want sales from this date, and click, and they get pulled in. Mm-hmm. So that's a really nice, really nice feature. Now, like for pulling that historical data, some of it, like item titles, for the whole year won't come in. So like if that's really important to you, we also have a secondary method where you can get a report from eBay, format it, and then upload it. I don't think that'll be important for everyone. Most people just go with the direct import, and that's really easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then so we also have automation for Poshmark and Mercari reports, but something that some people aren't aware of is that My Reseller Genie is compatible with any and all selling platforms. So what that means means is while we don't have integration with all of the platforms, so it's not like we're automatically pulling from each of these every single day. We do have integration with eBay, so we do have automatic daily pulls for eBay sales and inventory if you want that. But what I mean by compatible is that you can enter in any selling platform. So if it's not already in My Reseller Genie, let's say that you have an antique booth, right, or a consignment shop, you can just add that as as your own selling platform in My Reseller Genie, and then track your sales or inventory if you want to, expenses from all that. And that's one of the things that we really want to highlight in this is that accounting is only amazing if you have all of your numbers in one place. We were actually just at a big reseller conference in Vegas last month, 2 months ago, and we had several people coming up to us and they're like, I have 5 different spreadsheets and I track my expenses in one and I track my inventory in the other, and it's just all over the place. But with My Reseller Genie, you can have everything in one spot. Yeah, so even if you sell a pair of sneakers to your neighbor across the street, you can enter that in. But that was a little bit of a tangent. Hopefully that answers your question now.
Wow, that's amazing. Honestly, I like the idea of having everything in one spot because that is me. I have documents and spreadsheets and it's everywhere and all over the place. So I think that would really help me stay more organized and less scatterbrained. One of the questions that kind of ties into that I had was, if we use a CPA for our taxes, what do we need to give them at the end of the year when they are going to file our taxes for us? Is there one spot that inside the web app that will compile all this information for us?
The short answer is your profit and loss statement. So profit and loss statement is like a report that puts all your revenue and all your expenses in one place. For your expenses, it'll summarize it based on the general ledger account or expense category. And so the CPA will use that to fill out your Schedule C. If you're accrual inventory method, we also have an inventory report, which is super great because on the Schedule C, it doesn't just ask for what's your cost of goods. It asks for beginning inventory balance, purchases during the year, and any inventory balance. And then it calculates your cost of goods from that, which is so confusing for most people. So
it's a nightmare.
The inventory report just prints out those 3 numbers for you. So you don't have to, go through making all those calculations.
Wow, that sounds so much easier than what I've been doing. Holy cow. Okay, that's amazing.
Yeah, we had several people reach out to us after they filed their taxes with the reports that My Reseller Genie gives them this year. And we were just getting testimonials from them. They were like, this was my first tax season where I actually felt like I knew what I was doing. It was so seamless. It was flawless. My accountant or my CPA came up to me and they were like, please don't stop doing whatever you're doing. Please don't stop. And that was just really, really encouraging to us, because, one of our goals is that we do want to make this easier for people and we want them to feel like they have some control over this so that they can focus on other aspects of their business.
Yeah, it sounds like something that a lot of us probably need to look a little harder into. So another question that I had was, what are some things that we should be tracking? Just could you give us a couple ideas of things, if a newer reseller is listening and they haven't really started tracking anything yet? What should we be tracking as resellers?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think most people know that you should be tracking, shipping supplies, office supplies, things that you're buying specifically for using with your business. I think a big one that a lot of people miss out on is your mileage, especially for resellers, because we're always driving around sourcing, going to the post office, maybe you're going to a trade show or something to connect with other resellers. And all that mileage, the IRS has a standard mileage rate that you can use to write off, because you're spending money on gas, you're spending money on wear and tear on your vehicle, insurance. And so you should be able to write that off in your taxes. So I think that's a big one that a lot of people miss out on.
Yeah. And you're also able to calculate that in My Reseller Genie too. So you can put your mileage in there, which is helpful. Yeah. I mean, saving your receipts, that would be a big one.
That's a good one,
yeah. Because, some people I think they're still confused. Do I really need to be doing that? And it's really important to have that as a fallback. And then, obviously if you haven't been putting in, your cost of goods into a spreadsheet or something, now, like, you really need to have those so that you have all that information, for when you catch up on your accounting.
And because I've used the software, I can kind of piggyback on that, how simple it is to input that information. You guys have built this for resellers, and it definitely shows. We're not in there right now, but they have a section where you can add it's an expenses section. And literally there's a drop down and they've already inputted different things. So if you wanted to do like add the expense of, let's say, your internet, maybe you account for that. There's, it's literally a drop down. It is so simple to input that. And that, I think, is one of the really good features of My Reseller Genie, is that they have literally designed this for us. Because I know that a lot of people had used GoDaddy. Now that we don't have that option, Easy Auction Tracker just announced that they're no longer going to do their spreadsheet. And then one of the only options I knew of was like QuickBooks. That is like not user friendly, and it's really expensive.
It is really expensive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of workarounds too, that you have to implement in QuickBooks if you want to use that. And some people, like, it works great for them. Like, if you're used to that, great. But especially if you want to track your inventory, I don't want to say it's impossible, but again, like, there's a lot of workarounds that you have to do, and there's just a lot of headaches, and it is very expensive.
Yeah. Adding in inventory to QuickBooks really shoots the price up.
Yeah. And then really quick, I don't think we've mentioned this, Liz, but you were talking about expenses. We also have bank and PayPal integration. So, you can manually add your expenses, or, let's say that you have a business credit card, business bank account, whatever, like, you can connect that to My Reseller Genie and automatically have all of those expenses pulled in. And you can stomp on my foot down here if I'm not supposed to say this, but we are in the process of adding a new feature where we're going to be auto categorizing.
So they're like, you'll be able to set up rules so that for a charge description that you get like every month, it'll just know, oh, this is subscription expense.
So you won't have to like manually assign a general ledger account to categorize what that expense is. So Genie will just remember, what that expense is. If it's, if you use a cross-posting service, it'll be like, subscription, boom.
Wow, that is amazing, honestly. Holy cow. We were just having a conversation, Liz and I, the other day about how Easy Auction Tracker has announced that they're kind of shutting down. And I know there was a lot of chaos when GoDaddy Bookkeeping decided they're not going to be an option any longer for us. If you could, there's resellers out there that are using these other platforms. If they're thinking about switching over or wanting to find something that's easier for them to use and just like kind of all encompassing, what would you like to see to them about potentially making the switch over to My Reseller Genie?
Yeah. So I think one thing I'd want to address, like, this is kind of more geared towards the GoDaddy people. Mm-hmm. When GoDaddy first went out of business, we had a lot of people come over, and at the time we were really more geared towards accrual inventory method only. Mm-hmm. Because that was like, when we started out, that was our goal. We wanted to make it easy to do accrual inventory accounting. But then, we got all these people in and they were like, hey, we have these other needs, which you're not really addressing very well. Mm-hmm. And we were like, yeah, you're right. Mm-hmm. So we need to do better. Mm-hmm. And so I think a lot of people were like, okay, well, we'll wait around for a month or so. Mm-hmm. And then a lot of other people were like, nope, I'm going. Mm-hmm. I gotta find something that works right now, mm-hmm. which, is totally understandable. All that being said, we made a lot of adjustments mm-hmm. to accommodate the people who are cash inventory method. Yeah. So like, if you've tried My Reseller Genie before and you're like, this doesn't work for me, mm-hmm. Try it again, because there's a lot of differences now. Mm-hmm. And I think you'll be a lot more happy with it this time around. For the Easy Auctions Tracker people, I think that My Reseller Genie will be a good transition for you. Mm-hmm. Having a solution with the eBay integration is really important, because like, you're used to that. There's sales, like, that's one thing to keep track of. But then with eBay, like, you have all these other fees too. Trying to keep track of all that, it can be kind of a mess. Mm-hmm. And so it's nice to have things pulled in for you and a lot of that work already done. Those would be the two things I would say.
Yeah. And one thing I would add to that is if you're switching, if you're confused, we have a lot of resources to help you in making the transition. So we have a YouTube channel that's dedicated purely to help videos, to, how-tos. We have a lot of demos on there too, where we'll just kind of walk you through start to finish on how to get set up. Our customer service is something that we really, really pride ourselves in because, I could just ask, both of you right now, like, have you ever had a horrible experience with customer service? And like, the answer is always yes. Like, there's just so many bad experiences out there. And Paul and I don't want our company to be defined by that in any type of way. So we always respond to emails within 24 hours or less. It's usually less than that. You can reach out to us on Facebook, on Instagram. Again, we have our YouTube channel. We have a Facebook users group, so you can join that once you sign up for My Reseller Genie. And if you want to troubleshoot with other users, you can do that. We're also in that group, monitoring that and stuff. So we have a ton of resources. We also have written instructions too. So, we try to cover, every aspect of transitioning over and then like how to use the software.
Great answer. I've got like one more. So I watched some of the videos on your YouTube channel that you were talking about, kind of stumbled upon that. And it is, guys, it's so detailed. Like, it's crazy, the stuff that they go over. But anyway, so watching a couple of those videos to get a better understanding of how it worked, you mentioned that users are able to kind of change their insights for their business for like different categories. And I think the example that you used in the video was putting in the search term for like the color black for your inventory. And I don't think that people realize that there's so much data that you can access through My Reseller Genie. So what would another potential feature be that you feel is underutilized or not as well known, like being able to access those insights?
I would point to two specific things. So like one thing is the cash reconciliation section of the app. I think a lot of people don't really utilize that, probably because they don't really understand what the purpose is. And also, like, it's not required for, tax purposes. Being able to reconcile your bank account, that just basically means that you're tracking how much money your business has. And so that can be really helpful because on our management dashboard, we have a chart where we put like your inventory balance, estimated income tax liability, your cash balance. So having your cash or how much money your business has right next to how much you're estimated to owe is really helpful because obviously you want to have more cash than what you're estimated to owe in income tax. The other area that I think, and this is just me guessing, I can't say for sure, but I'm guessing a lot of people don't use one of the charts on our sales analysis dashboard, which shows you the average sale price based on how long it takes an item to sell. We break it up into like 0 to 30, 31 to 60, 61 to 90, and so on and so.
Days, you mean?
Yeah, like days to sell. And so like the purpose of that chart is to try and take some of the emotion out of, making decisions about dropping prices. Because like, you buy something and you're like, this is going to make a great profit for me. And then it sits for like 100 days and you're like, I really didn't think this was going to sit. And then someone makes a lowball offer and it's just like, well, do I accept? Do I hold out longer? That chart shows you like your trend over time. And so it's probably going to vary a little bit for everyone. If you see that like after 90 days, my average sale price really drops, it can take the emotion out of the decision a little bit. And you can just say like, all right, look, this is kind of what happens when an inventory item sits this long. I need to clear this thing out, try and recoup some of my money. I'll take the lowball offer, or I'll try and counter offer lower than I want to, but a little higher than what they initially offered.
Yeah, like I'm not going to wait another 5 months to get an extra $10. It's just I've been guilty of doing that, but that chart can really help. One thing I'll just say really, really quick is I'm not sure that everybody uses this either. He mentioned income tax liability. So My Reseller Genie actually has a calculator in it where you can enter in your estimated income tax liability. So it's whether that's 25%, 30%. We always tell people to ask your accountant or look up your state laws and see what that liability is. But almost always we all have to pay taxes, right? The end of the year. But Genie, will take that number, whatever that percentage is, and calculate that off of your sales so that you actually can be planning ahead and saying, oh, I'm going to be owing $300 this year or $3,000 this year. And, again, it is an estimate, it's not exact, but that can be really, really helpful for planning purposes, because I know in the past I've been guilty of just thinking, oh, I'll get to that when I get to it. And then, I'll file my taxes and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to pay that much and I don't have the money for it because I haven't been thinking ahead. I haven't been saving that. So that's also a really cool feature of Genie.
Wow. That I don't even know what else to say. That is so impressive. Holy cow. And I think, Paul, what you were talking about with that, the one chart that helps you take the emotion out of knowing when to lower your price, if you should just take the offer instead of sitting. I think there are so many resellers out there that are way too attached. I'm guilty of it as well. Way too attached to your inventory, especially if you find that, like you said, that one-off thing that you're like, oh my gosh, this is so special. Everyone else is going to love it. It's going to sell so fast. And then it's like, I actually have this winter jacket right now that I've had for way too long, like 2.5 years. And when I found it, I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, this is going to get scooped up so fast. And it's still sitting there. I got a really low ball offer the other day. And now I'm like, I probably should have just taken it. It takes up so much room in the freaking closet, like, let's just get it out of here and get my cash back so I can reinvest it into something that will actually sell quickly. So I think that's really useful. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to check that out.
Yeah. And going back to how you mentioned like the different charts, and I actually do look at the days listed chart. I'm actually looking at it right now. 41% of our inventory sits for 121 to 250 days. Not only does My Reseller Genie allow you to do the sales and inventory, but you're actually looking and analyzing. Like, you're able to analyze your business so much better than if you just use a simple spreadsheet. And another thing, if you sell on multiple platforms, you also have a chart where you can see the profit per platform, which I think would be really helpful for those who do use like cross-listing services. And I don't think you mentioned yet that when you're doing like your initial import, if you sell on multiple platforms and use a cross-listing service, you can download that file directly from there, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, you can download your sales from there and then put it into the template for My Reseller Genie and upload it.
Yeah, so you're not having to go to each individual platform if you use a cross-listing service, which I think is so incredibly helpful, because there are a lot of people that do sell on multiple platforms. They just don't do eBay or Mercari or Posh. All right, so one thing we wanted to ask you, do you guys have any plans for a mobile app in the future?
Yes. Yes, we do. It's still kind of a ways out. It's tough because like there's so many things that we could do. We love our user base because, we tell them all the time, like, hey, we want your feedback. We want to know how you think we can make the app better. And so we really do drive the majority of our development based on what we're hearing from users. So the mobile app is definitely something that is on our radar. We've had some people ask about it. When we built out the web application, we structured the technology in such a way that building a mobile app will be a little bit easier than if we hadn't been thinking about it. But I will say it's probably still a ways away that we'll have a mobile app.
All right. So one last question that we have for you guys is if you could give fellow resellers one piece of advice on how they can turn their paycheck into a day check, what would it be?
I would say consistency. Consistency in what you're doing. And maybe that's a little bit too vague, but just I know something that I've struggled with is like my consistency looks a lot different than Paul's consistency. I mean, we're different people. I have some chronic health issues, so like I have to kind of navigate that, and my day-to-day can look different depending on, how I'm feeling. Figure out like what that consistency looks like and then run with it and stay consistent with it because it really does pay off. Like I do a lot on social media as well to like promote Genie or promote, like what I'm selling and stuff. And, not just consistency with listing every day, but consistency, with social media or, just like whatever avenues that you're using.
Man. So I was actually going to say consistency as well. So kudos to Faith. Kudos to Faith. I guess my secondary idea would be trying to figure out how you can really make the most from your time, depending on where you are and the sources that you have access to and that sort of thing. You'll have all sorts of different opportunities, that other resellers won't necessarily have access to. And some of those opportunities are really going to pay off for you. Others are going to suck a lot of time and not really pay off a lot. And so I'd say really trying to figure out which of my opportunities, which resources that I have access to are helping my business the most, really capitalizing on those.
I love that you guys had the same answer.
I'm glad I went first.
Both great answers, though. Love it.
Yeah, we cannot thank you guys enough for coming on. And hopefully after this episode, listeners will not be so scared and intimidated by bookkeeping. Can you let us know where people can find you on social media and then where they can sign up for My Reseller Genie, which we'll make sure that we have a link in the show notes or description down below.
So yes, so you can find us if you go to our website, www.myresellergenie.com. There's more answers to questions there. We also have an FAQ. And then on social media, we're on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. It's all the same My Reseller Genie handle. And then Liz, I believe that there's a coupon code that you guys have for anybody listening to.
Yeah, so if you're listening and you want to sign up for My Reseller Genie, you'll get 15% off your first month and use the coupon code Daycheck, all in capital.
Yep.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, guys. This was incredible. We so appreciate your time and coming to speak to all of our listeners.
Thank you
Thanks
guys
for having us.
Yeah,
It
thank
was a lot
you
of
so
fun.
much for having us. This has been fantastic. We're really grateful for what you guys are doing as well. Like what the type of podcast that you guys are offering. Like as I'm getting more into the podcast world, there's so many different types of reselling podcasts. And what you guys are offering is really, really helpful and really, really important because there's a lot of new timer resellers, and people who just don't know what they're doing. So thank you guys for doing what you're doing.
All right, guys, that's a wrap on today's episode. Thank you so much for listening to the Paycheck to Daycheck Reselling Podcast.
Anything we mentioned in this episode will be linked down below in the show notes or description down below.
Be sure to share this episode with anyone you think it will help and follow us on social media at P2D Podcast.
Thanks again for listening. Keep working towards that day check.